I was first introduced to a man named Mark Neroth from an audio teaching that he had done about the Nicene Creed. And I found it interesting that Mark was as passionate teaching about the Nicene Creed as I've ever heard anybody teach about anything. I actually listened to the teaching 3 times. It was that good. But in there, Mark is a real historian, and a few different times he mentioned things about the church in history that I didn't know, and I figured most people didn't know. And so I decided then that I needed to interview him. And so Mark graciously agreed to allow me to interview him. And what you're about to watch is a short segment from that interview.
You know, I hear from people, we shouldn't call the church the church. That's just a religious word, right? That if you're trying to translate ecclesia, the Greek word we usually translate church into English, it should be congregation or called out or anything but church. And you know, I read Kenny Greek, and that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, just to be completely honest. Like, yes, ecclesia means called out. It means a congregation. But language does not exist in a vacuum. And there's actually a story behind this word church, why we use this word church in English, and not just congregation, ecclesia, a group of people, because anything can be an ecclesia, but there's this one thing called the church. And it's actually kind of a loan word from Anglo-Saxon. And if you think about it, in the Middle Ages, it basically means the Lord's house. But think about what the Anglo-Saxons were doing in the Middle Ages. They weren't going to church to worship God. They were going to church to burn them to the ground, to rape and pillage those churches. And so today, when we say that word church, it's reminding us this is the institution that Christ built. This is the institution that nothing can conquer, that nothing can defeat, that was founded 2,000 years ago and is still here today and will be here long beyond us. So every time I say the word church, it's like that, remember the Alamo, like what happened in the past and what does that mean for us going forward? You know, my book, Tom, is about the Nicene Creed. It took 10 years to write this book. And there was one line in the creed the first time I heard it that just captivated my imagination. It's toward the end. It's, I believe in the church. Now, usually there are some other adjectives in there, the 4 marks of the church. I believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church. But let's forget those for a second. It's, I believe in the church. Now, it's easy to say I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the Holy Spirit, I believe in the Bible, but I believe in the church. I believe in a group of Christians, a group of flawed people who very often hurt me. Like, that is a hard thing to say. But do we believe in it? Because I think a lot of the issues we're seeing in the church today show, no, we don't. We think the church is going to fail just as much as we think any other institution is going to fail. We approach it just like we approach civil government or any other large corporations, any other massively flawed institution. I actually have, because I'm weird, I have some coins I'd like to show you here to kind of illustrate this example of believing in the church. This is a Roman denarius. It was minted in 71 AD. The Emperor Vespasian is on the front, and on the back is Mars, the god of war. Now, the historian Josephus tells us that the year this coin was minted, Vespasian's son Titus held a triumph, a parade in the city of Rome celebrating his victory over Jerusalem. Basically, Titus just leveled the city of Jerusalem in the year 70. The next year this coin was minted, he held a parade. And he marched, Josephus tells us, the scrolls from the temple through the streets of Rome. When this coin was minted, the Bible was literally a spoil of war. All right? Now, I have another coin. It's 1,000 years later, but it's still Roman. Today we might call this a Byzantine coin, but they didn't call themselves that. They called themselves Roman. So this is a Roman coin, but it doesn't have the emperor on the front, and it doesn't have the god Mars on the back. Instead, Jesus is on the front of this coin, and he's holding the book of the Gospels in one hand, and in the other he's, blessing the people. And then on the back, there's an abbreviation in Greek, and I'll read it to you. It says, Jesus Christos Nika, Jesus Christ Victor. Now, this is the same country, but it's an entirely different culture. Why? There's only one difference between this coin and this one. This culture where for entertainment they threw people to the lions, and this culture where that's completely existent, where this culture where you abort your children, and this one where it's gone. What is the difference between these two things? It's one thing. It's the church. Do we believe in the church? Do we believe that the church can succeed?
So I'm going to take what Mark just said into a slightly different trajectory, because I think this is so important for us to recognize, because I have encountered so many Christians today who are just kind of out there on their own, doing their own thing. I don't need the church. I've got Jesus. But that very idea flies in the face of so much of the New Testament. It flies in the face of the idea that we are a body and that each part is supposed to supply what the others need. It flies in the face of the idea that we're supposed to encourage one another. How do you do that if you're not together? It flies in the face of the idea that we're supposed to gather together. I mean, this is just so that idea that I can do it on my own is so contrary to the New Testament. You can't be a follower of Christ and not be part of the church that he has built. And so I think this is supremely important for us to understand, especially today. This is not just a nice concept. We need to recognize that the church is Christ's idea and we are a part of it.